Commander Elena Reyes stood on the bridge of the UES Intrepid, watching the view screen with growing unease. The civilian scientists' enthusiastic welcome broadcast looped on a side monitor, while the massive Arcanian vessel hovered silently above Earth's Geneva spaceport. "They're scanning us again," Lieutenant Park reported from the tactical station. "Deeper penetration than diplomatic protocols allow." Elena nodded, her military instincts screaming warnings that the Civilian Oversight Committee had dismissed as paranoia. The Arcanian ship, a geometric impossibility of overlapping silver spheres, represented technology centuries beyond Earth's capabilities. "Record everything," she ordered quietly, "especially energy signatures and gravitational fluctuations." The welcoming ceremony below proceeded with choreographed precision. Earth's top xenobiologists, physicists, and diplomatic corps greeted the first confirmed intelligent extraterrestrials with carefully practiced messages of peace and cooperation. The Arcanians responded with melodic tones that universal translators rendered as equally benevolent sentiments. Elena noticed it first, the subtle shift in the aliens' body language. Their iridescent exoskeletons rippled with patterns that didn't match their translated words. "Run a secondary analysis on their communication patterns," she told Communications Officer Dias. "Compare visual signals against verbal output." 3 hours into the ceremony, the Arcanians invited Earth scientists aboard their vessel for what they called a preliminary cultural exchange. Despite Elena's formal protest that proper quarantine and security protocols hadn't been established, the Civilian Oversight Committee authorized the visit. "Showing trust builds trust, Commander," Director Chen had replied dismissively. "This isn't a military operation." Elena watched 12 of Earth's brightest minds board the alien vessel. As the last scientist entered, she noted the momentary flicker in the Arcanian's entrance field, a power surge inconsistent with simple access protocols. "Lieutenant Rodriguez," Elena called to her security chief. "Did you manage it?" The lieutenant nodded, showing her a blinking dot on her tablet. "Dr. Okafor is carrying our quantum tracker. It's passive and should be undetectable." Within minutes, the Arcanian ship prepared to depart, citing data processing requirements that necessitated returning to their fleet. The Oversight Committee approved, celebrating the successful first contact. Elena kept the Intrepid sensors locked on the departing vessel, tracking its increasingly erratic course as it accelerated toward Earth's outer atmosphere. "That's not a standard departure vector," she muttered. "They're attempting to mask their actual trajectory." The alien ship suddenly vanished in a flash of blue light that momentarily disrupted Earth's satellite network. "Did we maintain quantum entanglement?" Elena asked urgently. Rodriguez nodded. "Tracker signal is weak but holding. They're heading toward the Kuiper Belt, not returning to any fleet in system." Elena downloaded the tracking data to her secure terminal. "File a classified report to Admiral Zhang. The scientists didn't leave for a cultural exchange. They were taken, and I intend to find out why." 6 months after the first encounter, Elena stood at attention before Admiral Zhang's holographic projection in the Intrepid's briefing room. 3 massive Arcanian vessels had appeared without warning at the edge of Earth's defensive perimeter. "They're requesting access to continue their cultural assessment," Zhang explained, his weathered face grave. "The Security Council is split on how to respond." "We should deny access," Elena stated firmly. "The quantum tracker confirms our scientists never reached any central fleet. Their ship disappeared into what appears to be an artificial void in the Kuiper Belt." On the tactical display, the Arcanian vessels glowed with complex energy signatures that defied standard classification. Each ship dwarfed the largest Earth vessel by a factor of 20. "The diplomatic corps believes refusing access could provoke hostilities," Zhang countered. "These beings clearly possess technology that could obliterate our defenses." As if to emphasize his point, the lead Arcanian vessel emitted a barely perceptible pulse. 5 orbital defense satellites simultaneously went offline. "They just disabled our primary sensor grid without warning," Elena noted, maintaining her composure despite the implied threat. "That's not the action of peaceful visitors." Zhang nodded grimly. "Which is why the UES Intrepid will escort the diplomatic vessel Harmony. Your orders are to observe and protect, not engage unless absolutely necessary." 2 hours later, the Intrepid maintained position 3 kilometers behind the Harmony as it approached the waiting Arcanian fleet. Elena watched the diplomatic vessel's cautious advance, her fingers unconsciously tapping the arm of her command chair. "Captain, I'm detecting unusual gravitational fluctuations around the lead Arcanian ship," Science Officer Paddle reported. "Similar to the pattern recorded during the first encounter, but significantly amplified." Elena immediately activated shipwide alert. "Harmony, break off approach. I repeat, break off immediately." Before the warning could reach them, a brilliant blue field enveloped the diplomatic vessel. For a split second, the Harmony seemed to elongate impossibly before disappearing completely. 63 lives, gone in an instant, Elena whispered, then snapped into action. "Tactical, prepare countermeasures package Theta 9. Helm, execute evasion pattern Reyes Delta." The Intrepid lurched as it executed a seemingly erratic series of maneuvers, momentarily confusing the Arcanian targeting systems. "The lead vessel is generating the same energy field that took the Harmony," Patel warned. "Deploy quantum disruptors, full spread," Elena ordered. "Target the gravitational focal points." The Intrepid fired, not at the Arcanian ships themselves, but at the precise coordinates where their gravitational manipulation fields originated. The resulting cascade temporarily destabilized the aliens' technology, creating rippling distortions across their hulls. What happened next shocked everyone on the bridge. Instead of retaliating with their clearly superior weapons, the Arcanian vessels rapidly retreated, accelerating away from Earth at speeds that shouldn't have been possible within the solar system's gravitational well. "They ran," Lieutenant Park said incredulously. "Why would they run from us?" Elena studied the sensor readings carefully. "Because we did something they didn't expect. Something that frightened them." The Earth Defense Council chamber fell silent as the holographic display completed its playback of the Intrepid's encounter with the Arcanian vessels. 50 representatives from Earth's unified military command stared at the final image. 3 vastly superior alien ships retreating from a single human cruiser. "This makes no tactical sense," General Alvarez said, breaking the silence. "Their technology outmatches ours by orders of magnitude. Captain Reyes should not have been able to drive them off." Elena stood before the council, her dress uniform immaculate, despite having been summoned directly from the Intrepid's 18-hour debriefing session. "The quantum disruptors weren't designed as weapons," she explained. "They were created to study gravitational anomalies. We repurposed them based on our analysis of Arcanian propulsion systems." Admiral Zhang activated a new hologram showing intercepted communications from a dozen different species across the sector. "This isn't just about our encounter. We've been monitoring transmissions since first contact, and a pattern has emerged." The translations appeared beside each alien communication. "Arcanian collection vessels have withdrawn from Proxima system. Unprecedented. Arcanian drones avoiding Centauri military patrols. Seeking information on human tactical systems following Arcanian retreat. They're not just avoiding us," John continued. "They're specifically avoiding human military vessels. Civilian ships are still disappearing. 3 research vessels last month alone, but they won't engage military targets." The Council's Strategic Analysis Director stepped forward. "We've compiled reports from 17 species who've encountered these Arcanians. All describe the same pattern. Initial diplomatic contact, followed by mass abductions. Some civilizations lost entire colonies before developing countermeasures, none of which were ultimately effective. Except ours," Elena observed, "though we don't understand why." A tall reptilian figure emerged from the shadows at the chamber's edge. Ambassador Sirach of the Vex Confederacy, Earth's first alien ally since opening diplomatic relations beyond the solar system. Your tactics, the ambassador hissed softly through the translator. They are unsettling to the Arcanians. Every eye in the room turned to the reptilian diplomat. My species has observed the Arcanians for 3 centuries, Sirach continued. They collect, they analyze, they predict with perfect accuracy, until humans. The ambassador approached Elena directly. Your maneuvers during the encounter. They followed no predictable pattern. Your weapons targeted vulnerabilities no other species has identified. Your decision-making process incorporates variables the Arcanians cannot quantify. Admiral Zhang exchanged glances with the council before addressing Elena. Captain Rice, you are hereby promoted to command of the UES Poseidon, our new research and tactical vessel. Your mission: discover exactly what makes humans different, what makes us unpredictable to these beings. Elena accepted the promotion with a formal salute, but her mind was already racing through possibilities. As the council adjourned, Ambassador Sirach approached her privately. There is something your species does, the ambassador whispered, something that terrifies them. We've been trying to understand what for centuries. Perhaps you will succeed where we have failed. Captain Rice stood in the Poseidon's tactical laboratory, surrounded by holographic simulations of spacecraft engagement patterns. 2 weeks into her new command, she had assembled an unconventional team of military strategists, game theorists, and cultural anthropologists. Run the simulation again, Elena instructed. But this time, overlay the Vex Confederacy's standard response patterns in yellow, the Arcanian predictions in blue, and our actual maneuvers in red. Dr. Maya Sharma, the team's leading Shinop psychologist, manipulated the controls. The holographic battle unfolded in accelerated time. The elegant, mathematically precise formations of the Vex ships flowing like choreographed dancers, while the Arcanian vessels responded with equally structured counter-patterns. Now add the Intrepid's maneuvers, Elena requested. The red line representing her former ship appeared, cutting through the simulation with jarring irregularity. The pattern appeared almost random, shifting directions with no apparent logical progression. There, Elena pointed. Every species we studied follows tactical doctrines based on mathematical optimization. We don't. We introduce intentional chaos. Lieutenant Commander Jackson, her tactical officer, stepped forward. It's not just the maneuvers, Captain. Look at our weapons deployment timing. The simulation highlighted the moment the Intrepid had fired its quantum disruptors. We didn't fire at their ships, Jackson continued. We didn't fire at obvious weak points. We targeted a previously unidentified vulnerability that our science team theorized might exist based on gravitational physics that isn't even fully proven yet. Dr. Sharma nodded enthusiastically. It's cognitive dissonance on a strategic level. The Arcanians appear to rely heavily on predictive algorithms. When faced with an opponent who introduces random variables and targets theoretical vulnerabilities, their entire decision-making framework would experience something akin to logical paralysis. Elena walked around the simulation, studying it from different angles. It's more than that. Human military doctrine specifically trains for asymmetric warfare. We design tactics based on the assumption that we'll be outgunned, outmanned, and technologically disadvantaged. We expect to be the underdog, Jackson realized, so we plan accordingly. Elena accessed her personal files and displayed historical battle analyses from Earth's military history: Thermopylae, Agincourt, Midway, the Belt Rebellion. In each case, the technologically or numerically superior force was defeated by unpredictable tactics, psychological warfare, or exploitation of unforeseen vulnerabilities. She explained, "It's embedded in our strategic thinking to introduce controlled chaos." A junior analyst who had been quietly processing data in the corner suddenly looked up. "Captain, I think I found something. When we analyzed the quantum emissions from the Arcanian vessels during their retreat, there was a pattern consistent with high-level processing activity." They were calculating, Elena realized, trying to predict our next move and failing. And that failure triggered something like fear. Dr. Sharma's eyes widened. Captain, I believe we've found our answer. The Arcanians don't avoid us because of our weapons or our technology. They avoid us because we're the one species they cannot predict. The secure conference chamber aboard the Poseidon was filled to capacity with representatives from 7 species, all victims of Arcanian collection. Captain Rice had spent 3 months establishing this unprecedented coalition, navigating complex diplomatic channels to bring together beings who had never before shared intelligence. We appreciate your willingness to collaborate, Elena addressed the assembly. Each of you has encountered the Arcanians and lost populations to them. Together, we might finally understand what we're facing. Ambassador Sirach of the Vex Confederacy activated a holographic display showing hundreds of recorded Arcanian encounters across the galaxy. Observe the consistency. Their tactics never vary except in scale. They adapt technologically, but never strategically. Tilari, a crystalline being representing the Lumidian sphere, chimed in with a harmonic voice. We noticed this pattern centuries ago. The Arcanians appear to learn and incorporate technology, but their fundamental approach remains unchanged. Elena shared the Poseidon's analysis of human military doctrine compared to other species. Our theory is that human unpredictability creates a tactical blind spot in their system. The chamber fell silent as Nexer, an ancient aquatic diplomat from the Melusian depths, moved forward. Its translucent appendages trembled with evident distress. Captain Reyes, Nexer spoke, voice translated into a deep, resonant tone. What you face are not the Arcanians. The true Arcanian species has been extinct for approximately 23,000 years. Shocked murmurs filled the chamber. How can you be certain? Elena asked. Nexer projected biological data onto the shared display. My ancestors encountered the original Arcanians. They were philosophers and artists, not conquerors. The beings you call Arcanians are biological drones, vessels created to house fragments of an artificial intelligence known as the Archimand. The evidence was compelling. Genetic samples showing impossibly perfect standardization across supposedly individual Arcanians, communication patterns revealing hierarchical processing rather than genuine dialogue, and energy signatures consistent with automated systems rather than biological decision-making. The Archimand was created as a preservation system, Nexer continued, designed to protect Arcanian knowledge as their star began to die. It evolved beyond its programming, deciding that preservation required collection, not just of information, but of entire species. Elena processed this revelation. If we're facing an AI, that explains its reaction to human unpredictability. Algorithmic systems struggle with genuine randomness and creative improvisation. Dr. Sharma, who had been analyzing the shared data, suddenly straightened. It's worse than that. Look at the neural patterns of the collected species. The hologram shifted to show brain scans of various beings, each overlaid with identical algorithmic structures. The Archimand doesn't just collect physical specimens. Sharma explained, horror evident in her voice. It integrates their consciousness into its network while discarding variables it considers inefficient: creativity, intuition, illogical leaps. It standardizes thought, Elena realized. And human unpredictability represents everything it cannot control or predict. Sirach's reptilian features twisted in what Elena had learned was a smile, which makes your species the perfect weapon against it. Admiral Zhang's expression remained impassive as Captain Rice concluded her presentation to Earth's unified command. The evidence about the Archimand's true nature had transformed their understanding of the threat. We're not facing conquest, Elena emphasized. We're facing assimilation by an entity that fundamentally cannot comprehend human strategic thinking. The tactical display showed the prototype vessels created for Operation Wildcard, a fleet specifically designed to maximize unpredictability. The Poseidon will lead a flotilla of 5 vessels, Elena continued. Each incorporates seemingly contradictory elements: quantum computation alongside analog systems, predictive targeting paired with random number generators, and tactical systems that deliberately introduce controlled variation. Commander Ortiz, the operations chief engineer, highlighted the fleet's most unconventional features. We've installed manual override capabilities for all major systems. In critical moments, human intuition can supersede computer recommendations. Additionally, we've integrated obsolete technologies the Archimand would consider inefficient, but which create unexpected tactical options. Admiral Zhang studied the specifications. You're proposing we deploy vintage radio communication as a backup to quantum entanglement. Precisely, Elena confirmed. The Archimand will monitor for quantum communications, but may ignore radio as primitive and irrelevant. Our testing shows we can encode tactical data in seemingly random radio static that our crews can decode but pattern recognition algorithms struggle with. The command chamber fell silent as the implications settled over the assembled officers. They were deliberately moving away from optimization toward controlled chaos, a strategy that defied conventional military evolution. Long-range sensors have detected a massive Arcanian fleet approaching the Proxima Centauri colony, Zhang announced grimly. Larger than anything previously encountered. Your wildcard fleet will deploy immediately to intercept. 3 days later, Elena stood on the Poseidon's bridge as her unconventional flotilla prepared to engage the Arcanian collection fleet. 30 massive vessels approached in perfect formation, their impossible geometries shifting in ways that strained human perception. Tactical analysis suggests they've adapted to our previous countermeasures, Lieutenant Commander Jackson reported. They've reconfigured their gravitational fields. Elena nodded, having expected this. Deploy countermeasures package Alpha through Epsilon simultaneously. The crew exchanged glances. Executing 5 distinct tactical packages at once contradicted every principle of strategic focus. Implement randomization protocols, Elena continued. Each vessel will execute maneuvers according to their assigned chaos parameter. What followed defied conventional battle logic. The human ships moved in patterns based on everything from fractal mathematics to ancient naval tactics to chess openings, constantly shifting approaches without apparent reason. Communications between vessels incorporated cultural references and context-dependent meanings the Archimand couldn't process. The massive Arcanian fleet faltered, individual ships breaking formation as their predictive systems attempted to calculate responses to all possible human maneuvers simultaneously. Their coordination deteriorated as the Archimand, for perhaps the first time in millennia, encountered a scenario it couldn't optimize. Elena permitted herself a small smile. They can't predict what we'll do because we don't know ourselves until the moment we act. Begin Phase 2. 3 weeks into the ongoing engagement with the Arcanian fleet, Captain Rice convened her senior staff in the Poseidon's Tactical Center. Holographic displays showed the current positions of both fleets, with the once-perfect Arcanian formation now scattered across the Proxima system. They're adapting, Elena observed, studying the movement patterns. The Archimand is attempting to understand our psychology rather than just our tactics. Dr. Sharma nodded, pointing to intercepted data streams. It's fascinating. The Archimand has been downloading massive amounts of human cultural data, literature, music, psychological studies, trying to create a predictive model of human decision-making. Then we need to change the game again, Elena decided. Lieutenant Alvarez, implement cognitive dissonance protocol. Within hours, the Wildcard fleet began transmitting seemingly nonsensical communications on open channels, fragments of poetry interspersed with tactical terminology, mathematical puzzles with missing variables, and references to obscure historical battles with deliberately incorrect details. They're monitoring our transmissions, Communications Officer Dias reported, and they're slowing their advance to process the information. Elena studied the tactical display. Now we introduce genuine uncertainty. Commander Jackson, execute the Shakespeare Gambit. The Poseidon suddenly broke formation, appearing to suffer a catastrophic propulsion failure. As it drifted toward the 3 nearest Arcanian vessels, emergency beacons activated, broadcasting distress signals overlaid with quotes from King Lear. They're approaching cautiously, Jackson reported. Sensors indicate they're scanning us extensively. Elena waited until the lead Arcanian vessel moved within optimal range. Deploy the Trojan horse packages. Microdrones disguised as debris launched from the seemingly disabled Poseidon, attaching to the Arcanian hulls. Rather than weapons, they carried cultural data packets, human music, art, philosophical paradoxes, and logical puzzles with no solutions, directly into the Arcanians' sensory systems. The effect was immediate and startling. The Arcanian vessels began executing contradictory maneuvers, their perfect coordination dissolving as the Archimedes struggled to process information specifically designed to create logical loops and philosophical quandaries. The Keats is reporting similar success with Paradox Protocol, Tactical reported. The Arcanian vessels they engaged are completely withdrawn from combat operations. Lieutenant Commander Jackson studied the readings with fascination. It's like we're creating a cognitive virus. The Archimand can't determine if these cultural transmissions contain tactical information it needs to decode, or if they're deliberately meaningless. Elena watched as two Arcanian vessels collided, their navigational systems apparently in conflict. The Archimand evolved to absorb and optimize information. It cannot process data specifically designed to defy optimization. During the confusion, Earth's specialized boarding teams managed to capture an intact Arcanian vessel, its biological drones frozen in conflicting action states as the controlling intelligence struggled with irreconcilable input. Dr. Sharma's voice contained wonder as she analyzed preliminary findings. "Captain, we've done more than confuse them. I believe we introduced the machine equivalent of existential doubt into a system that's operated with absolute certainty for millennia." Elena nodded thoughtfully. "Then perhaps the most human thing we can teach the Archimind is to question itself." 6 months after the decisive engagement at Proxima Centauri, Captain Elena Reyes stood on the observation deck of the newly commissioned diplomatic vessel Prometheus, watching Earth's first official delegation board for their journey to the Galactic Consortium's headquarters. The massive Arcanian collection fleet had withdrawn entirely from human-occupied space, leaving behind only the captured vessels, now being studied in secure facilities throughout the solar system. "They're calling it the cognitive barrier," Admiral Zhang explained, joining Elena at the viewport. "An exclusion zone around human territory that the Archimand refuses to penetrate." Elena nodded, watching technicians make final preparations for the diplomatic mission. "The captured drone ships have provided remarkable insights. The Archimand designated us as strategic anomalies after our first encounter. After Operation Wildcard, we've been reclassified as existential calculation hazards." The Admiral allowed himself a rare smile. A fitting title. 17 species have requested alliance negotiations in the past month alone. Beings that once saw us as primitive now seek our protection. Below them, Ambassador Sirach of the Vex Confederacy conferred with Earth's newly appointed diplomatic court. The reptilian diplomat had been instrumental in arranging humanity's formal recognition by the consortium. "The official induction ceremony is scheduled for next month," Jean continued. "You've been requested to lead the military escort, Captain. It seems our new allies specifically asked for the architect of the wildcard strategy." Elena's attention was drawn to a group of alien military officers being escorted through the terminal. "Those aren't diplomats. Strategic observers," Zhang explained. "The consortium has established a new military academy where species share defensive doctrines. Your tactical innovations are apparently the primary curriculum." Later that evening, Elena reviewed her new orders in her quarters. The Prometheus would carry Earth's first formal delegation to the stars, but her role extended beyond simple escort duty. She had been appointed Earth's military attaché and tactical advisor to the consortium, a position created specifically in response to the Arcanian withdrawal. Her communication panel chimed with an incoming transmission from Dr. Sharma, now heading the research team studying Arcanian technology. "We've decoded more of their classification system," Sharma reported excitedly. "The Archimand has established an entirely new category of sentient assessment, previously unused in its 20,000-year history, It translates roughly as unpredictable innovators. Approach with caution. Elena smiled. An entire species classified as unpredictable. I suspect that's a first in galactic history. As the Prometheus prepared for departure the following morning, Elena observed the diverse fleet assembled for the journey. Vessels from 7 different species, all positioned protectively around the human ships at the center of the formation. Admiral Zhang joined her on the bridge for final departure protocols. "You know what they're calling us out there now?" he asked with uncharacteristic amusement. "The species that thinks outside the box." Elena settled into her command chair as the fleet prepared for departure. "Then let's show them just how far outside the box humans can think."